Take you live now to Washington, D.C., where Margaret Brennan, the moderator of Face the Nation, is joining us.
Margaret, it's good to see you. Big news on the job front today. President Biden said the 467,000 jobs were part of a historic economic comeback. So what do these numbers indicate?
That's right, Carly. Well, he is arguing that there is momentum here, that this brighter than expected jobs number is a sign that what they're trying to do is working. Of course, it raises questions, and we'll ask them about whether the Biden administration needs to continue trying to get trillions of dollars in emergency aid approved by Congress, or is that no longer needed? We also want to talk about inflation. We're seeing competition for workers pushing up salaries and wages, but at the same time, the cost of living is going up. So Americans aren't necessarily feeling quite as bright as some of these figures may suggest they perhaps should. So all of this matters. And of course, we know the bottom line is the virus continues to impact the path of the recovery and how all of us feel.
Margaret, Florida Senator Marco Rubio will be joining you Sunday, just as the Winter Olympics in China wind through their first weekend. What can you tell us about current U.S. relations with China and what Senator Rubio wants to see?
Well, Senator Rubio is certainly a China hawk. There are many of them, particularly in the Republican Party right now in the U.S. Senate. And really, this is a bipartisan issue on many fronts. The U.S. and China are locked in competition. And some extraordinary remarks just this past week by the FBI director about how much American businesses are being hurt by theft of intellectual property and, in turn, loss of jobs. But we'll talk to Senator Rubio about his plans to put more restrictions on U.S. corporations and also restrictions on Chinese goods sold into the United States. He has already pushed for laws that would stop goods that are made with slave labor in concentration camps in China from being sold into the United States market. So this is just one of the things we will talk about. Remember, it is that genocide that led the Biden administration to say no high-level U.S. officials will attend the Olympics.
And turning to the pandemic, Margaret, the U.S. reached 900,000 deaths from COVID-19 today. What is the latest on the effort to vaccinate children under the age of 5?
There was some pretty confusing news from the FDA this week that said they are talking to Pfizer about potentially green-lighting 2 doses of a vaccine for children 4 and under while they continue to study if a 3rd dose is needed. Remember, in mid-December, they said they wanted to know whether a 3rd dose was needed before they greenlit the first 2 doses. So we want to talk to Dr. Scott Gottlieb, who sits on the board of Pfizer, about exactly what's going on and what has changed. We know there was that spike in pediatric hospitalizations due to Omicron, and it seems that now the government may be changing its decisions here because of the impact it is seeing on children. So we want to find out what is the date on the calendar and answer some of the questions parents have.
Margaret Brennan, thank you very much for joining us.
And you can join Margaret for Face the Nation Sunday morning at 10:30.